Hey everybody, it's Professor Diffley. This is Philosophy 255, Chapter 7, Lecture Video 2. So where we left off last time, we were talking about proper boundaries, 106G we had just discussed. So now we're down here at H in bold here. This one's real important. That's why I wanted to start, a new video with this and not get cut off in the middle. This has to do with about engaging with your clients on social media, social networking sites, anything like that. Short work here, it says you should avoid accepting requests from or engaging in personal relationships with clients on social networking sites, etc. Etc. And it talks about, to prevent boundary confusion, inappropriate dual relationships, or harm to clients. This is really, really important. You'll see some of the required reading this week actually dealt with some of this, and it's something you're sure to see on quizzes and exams here. Something to get you there. Short answer: you want a hard, fast rule of thumb. Don't engage with your clients on social media at all. Social network sites like LinkedIn, anything like that, don't do it. There needs to be a boundary, and that's what we're talking about, boundary confusion, where they start to think that's not just a professional relationship, that it is a personal, individual friendship relationship, and that's very important here. You're not your client's friends. That should not come into this at all. Now, that's not to say you can't be kind or nice or care about your clients. That's different, but we're talking about differences between a personal relationship, a friendship, and a business relationship, a social worker, a client relationship. Again, just avoid all contact. Do not search them out. That's also a very big thing. You can find the code. You're not supposed to go Googling or trying to find information about your client online. We'll talk about that a bit more. But the real thing, privacy issues are raised there. You shouldn't go snooping around. It also can, confirmation bias. Sometimes you see things online. Could influence what you do with your client, and you could take it out of context, all sorts of things. So just avoid this. And even here, like it says should, it doesn't say you must. I would read this if I'm you. Here's my advice: is do this as a must, right? That you have to have a rule: no engagement with your clients on social media. Even in places like, all right, take the college for example. Here, there's no rule that I know of that says a faculty can't be friends with a student on, say, social media, friends, Facebook, or a friend of on Facebook, or anything, Instagram, anything like that. But I would go with you shouldn't. I know some people do it. To me, that is crossing the boundary. It can lead to unethical issues, dual relationships, boundary confusion. So my rule, and this is what I was taught when I was in, when I took education classes, is you avoid those as much as possible. I'm not critiquing people who do. I'm just telling you what I would do. Some people can manage them. I just say avoid it altogether to cover yourself there. So again, avoid them on social media. And you don't have to be a jerk about it when you say you don't want to, that you can't be their friend or engage with them on social networking sites or anything like that. Explain to them the reasons why, and do it nicely. Say, I'd like to, but we have to maintain this boundary, for all these reasons, and you can give those, but explain it well and nicely and kindly, and don't be a jerk. Don't just ignore them, but, I would avoid accepting them, altogether. That's my view on this, and I think will save you the most trouble. Even, again, well-intentioned, you can get yourself in trouble. My rule has always been, don't put yourself into positions where it can seem anything untoward or anything unethical could be read into it. Just avoid those situations. That is best policy whenever possible. Go that route. So moving on here. Code and maintaining proper relationships continued here. 109. Sexual relationships. Social workers should, under no circumstances, engage in sexual activities and purple anything with their clients, no matter whether it's consensual or forced. Right? Do not do this. I think this is one of the first things I said in the class was big rules to follow, and usually act ethically. Not have sex with your clients. Do not engage with it. We're going to talk about this a little bit more in the slides because apparently it's a major problem or a significant problem. This should never come into contact there. If I'm telling you not to friend them on Facebook or social media, you sure shouldn't be having a sexual relationship with them. But 109 really talks about that there. So this is something to be avoided. And it goes further than that. We're going to see this. Once they're your client, they're always your client. So even afterwards, right? So your client, then you can't then when they stop being your client, you can also then cannot get into a relationship with them. This is also about prohibitions on their close friends and family, right? Again, you can't be dating a family member of one of your clients or their best friend, that sort of thing. Again, that's not, you shouldn't be coming into work like this to be finding your clients, to be looking to make friends with them or to have romantic and or sexual relationships with them. That is just blurring the lines beyond. I mean, that's not just blurring them, it's obliterating the lines between what is professional and what is personal. So this is again a big one there. Again, more of these here. They should engage in sexual activities or with clients' relatives or other individuals, as I was saying before. Because again, we're worried here about the risk of exploitation or other potential harms to the client. So why are we avoiding these relationships? With the relatives, clients, close relatives, or any relatives or individuals they may close personal relationship, can create harm, right, to them. You can they might feel you owe them something. They might feel more beholden to you because there's that family relationship. I mean, imagine you're in a relationship and then something goes wrong with it. Now there's all that tension in there as well. But it's also going to make clients more difficult for clients or to know the appropriate boundaries, professional boundaries. It can blur those lines again. So the rules here. Again, no sexual romantic relationships with your clients, no sexual romantic relationships with their relatives or with your clients' friends. And now, let's talk about this too, past relationships. Let's say you had someone that was a past relationship with, now they come to you and you get assigned to them as their social worker. You should not be doing that either, right? Once a client, always client. Once a relationship, it's always there. So even when your clients leave you, you can't then later, there's still sort of that client relationship that should be there. And you shouldn't be working closely with people you used to be in romantic or sexual relationships with, nor say their children. So maybe you had someone you dated way back in the day, and now as you're older, or they're a friend, and their children come to you. You shouldn't be in that either. Once that's a line that should not be crossed, and that's going to create problems as well. Other here, let's move on with this. Now who's supposed to set the boundaries here, right? It's the social worker assumes full burden for setting clear, appropriate, and culturally sensitive boundaries. So this is upon you to make sure this doesn't happen. So say a client does ask you out or something like that. It's on you to tell them what is appropriate and what is inappropriate. And again, now, how do you do this? You don't want to be mean. You got to be nice about it. It's a delicate subject, especially when feelings are involved, romantic or otherwise. It could get people, can get defensive, feelings hurt. And also, too, in this atmosphere we've been in, and rightfully so, where there's a focus on cutting down on sexual misconduct and other things, you just, this is something you don't want to get tripped up on or involved in. I mean, I remember when I was taking classes in education, one of the advice they had for us is that if you ever had a student of the opposite sex, and this was true for both male and female, don't meet with them, behind closed doors, because, you don't want things devolving into he said, she said. You don't want things come off wrong. I mean, this is my policy too, unless a student has something it's really, really confidential. My always meetings has always been with anybody, even colleagues, open door. That's just the way it should be. So, but you have, and that makes, clear that this is not a closed off situation, that it's, this is a professional boundary there. And that is real important to focus on there. Other things about this physical contact. So, this one's, let's look at what it says here. Social workers should not engage in physical contact with their clients when there's a possibility of psychological harm as a result of the client. And so, this isn't an outlaw of all physical contact, right? If there was a complete saying no physical contact, that means there would be no shaking of hands, anything like that. That's not what they're talking about here. It's, just don't put your, I think this is standard, most people know, just don't go putting your hands on other people, even if you mean it as, something of comfort, a pat on the back, a hand on the shoulder. You don't know how people are going to respond to that. You don't know fully what might trigger something or some psychological harm. You just don't know. And so you need to avoid that as much as possible. So again, physical contact thing like a handshake, that's fine. that is totally fine. But anything beyond that, you got to be really careful about, and you have to have sort of, I guess, permission would be a way to look at it. Consent. Look at this. This is a example from a TV show. Is that I seen This Is Us. I've watched an episode, but there's one where one of the main characters, Randall, adopts or has a foster child at home, a girl, and he comes up and sort of gives her a hug, puts a hand on her back, and she doesn't see it coming. She freaks out, and it turns out, short in the story is why, because she was abused, right? And so someone coming up from behind scared the hell out of her because of past trauma. And at the end of the show, it became, he went to go give her a hug and said, well, no, I shouldn't. And she goes, no, it's just when I don't see it coming, or something like that. So she would, willing to hug him because he was a foster parent, but had to know it was coming, right? And so again, you don't fully know what's going on with people's past and any trauma they may have had. So you got to be careful with this. But handshakes, that sort of thing's fine. What about hugging? I would say no. I don't see a reason to want to hug your clients. Maybe a congratulatory way. Problem with that is the hug could be misconstrued, right? It might be something in some cultural settings where that's fine, but a client may take that the wrong way, right? And be an invitation. This is that slippery slope, incrementalism, right? Well, if a hug is okay, maybe a kiss is okay, that sort of thing. And then before you know it, it's too far, right? Or so look that way, right? A hand on the shoulder, a pat on the back could be then, so for more physical invitation, seen as an invitation for more physical contact where it could lead to a hug or something else. And that's when you're now really hurting boundaries here or there. And you got to set clear, appropriate boundaries and culturally sensitive ones that govern physical contact. So what do we mean culturally sensitive here? This especially with the handshake, right? Traditionally it's normal. You meet someone, you shake their hand, that sort of thing. That's a cultural norm. To just outright refuse it, it's usually so you need a good reason so you don't seem rude, right? That you're sick or your hands are dirty, that sort of thing is why you wouldn't do it. Usually if you refused, in our culture, usually it's been if you refuse to shake someone's hand, it's often a sign of disrespect. And so, you got to be conscious of, what's a cultural norm, right? You're not supposed to go around touching people in public, strangers. But if you've been on crowded public transit, walking in a hallway store, occasionally you're going to bump into people. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, as long as it's not on purpose, you throw a shoulder at someone. Why that's to be expected in crowded places. You ever been a busy, crowded street, city street, there's or bar or something, there's going to be some physical contact in that way. It's unintentional. It is just, one of the things that happen in close quarters like that. That's a culturally sensitive or accepted one. It's the unwanted touching is what we're avoiding here. 1.11, sexual harassment. Don't sexually harass your clients. This one, I can't even believe that you need to, go further than that. No sexual harassment. But the one thing really here that can come up this is, you've seen this as, with the focus, and again, rightfully so, on sexual misconduct or, sexual inappropriate behavior in workplace and things like that. What you may, the line here can get a little blurry, right? Is say, if you think someone, just outside the professional relationship, you make a pass and you ask someone out on a date, that sort of thing. You could have completely misread the signals that you were giving. And as long as it's just that, there's nothing untoward, but, just simply, in advance and say, solicitation, not for, sex, but just a date or something like that, that could be just a misreading. However, depending on the person's perspective and how it comes across, it could also be viewed as something worse. And so you really got to be careful with that, right? And that's why I say just avoid it altogether. Obviously, the code here is talking about, here they're talking about sexual harassment includes unwanted sexual advances, sexual solicitation, requests for sexual favors, right? Say, I'll give you an example, I'll give you a good report, or I'll make sure you get that benefit if you do something for me. Obviously, that's exploitation and wrong. And it does, it can be written, verbal, electronic, physical contact. All of that is wrong. So again, don't no sex with clients. It's telling that this shows up multiple times in your code book. That shows that they're really against it, and also that it appears to be a problem. And we'll actually talk about that a little further and dive a little bit deeper into this, because this is a significant issue. In the next video, we'll pick up here in lecture video 3 for chapter 7. All right, thank you.